Well, hello and welcome to the CRM Zen Show, where we talk about all things Zoho. This is episode 341, Approve It or Lose It, recorded for Friday, September 7th, 2025. From Zenatta Consulting, I'm Tyler Colt.
I'm Greg Belnap. Let's get right on into the show.
All right. So yeah, Brett is out this week. I actually don't know where. I didn't ask. He's out for like a day and a half. And honestly, your guess is as good as mine. So we brought in Greg here for this week. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, happy to be here. And hey, maybe at the end of today's episode, we can play a little Where in the World is Brett Martin?
Very nice. That would bring me much joy.
Shoes.
So with that, we do have a pretty busy week. I want to jump on into it. But first, a quick word from our sponsor, ZPortals.
This episode of the CRM Zen Show is brought to you by ZPortals. ZPortals is a must-have extension allowing you to effortlessly coordinate with clients and partners. We configure ZPortals all the time for our clients who are looking for the best portal solution. And boy, do we love how easy it is to customize and the flexibility to connect to multiple Zoho apps. So don't wait. Check out ZPortals today and be sure to mention Zenatta to get 10% off your first month.
All right, here we are. So a couple stories to kick us off from the world of Zoho CRM. First one here is around approval processes. So these are some nice updates. Approvals have actually not really been touched in a while. They've always worked well in CRM, but there really haven't been any like updates or changes to it. Few big ones here that I think are going to help people a lot. So first one is being able to edit records inside of the approval process. This is kind of a big one because what'll happen is you submit a record to approval, it locks the record. You can no longer make any changes to it. And then you realize, oh, crud, there's a typo in this, right? You made a little error when you were entering the data. Like stuff happens, right? Little errors happen. You can't change it. So now your manager has to disapprove it or decline it. Then you make a tiny change. Then you submit it back to them. Essentially the same thing. But now it can be approved because of this minor adjustment. That's a huge one. I would imagine you'll be able to determine if you can or can't do this. So certain processes you shouldn't be allowed. But for a lot of them, it's like, hey, yeah, if you need to make a small change before this gets approved, let's not restart the whole process, right? Let's just move it forward. We can now do specific roles and groups for approvals. This is also really nice. So you might have like a team of leadership people that are identified in a group, or they might be within a predefined role hierarchy. Now you can say, hey, anybody from inside of that group or everybody inside of that group can or has to respectively approve the record before it moves forward. That's really nice. Like I might have a new salesperson and either myself, Josh, or Brett can take a look at a proposal and make sure it's good. Shouldn't have to be constrained just to a user. And then for those, the rare people that are using the hierarchical option rather than like the role-based option, you can now have a reporting to automatically assigned as the approval. So this is not how most people do it. Most people go in and create roles, right? Salesperson, sales manager, etc. Some organizations have more of a person-to-person reporting to hierarchy. And so now that can also apply here for your CRM approvals. 3 good ones. I like all of those. I mean, even just role-based approvals, like I honestly, if you would have asked me, I would have assumed that was already in there because that's the way that I would think a lot of people are going to want to do this. But great updates there for the approval processes.
Yeah, it's nice that they added the like the anyone versus everyone, because maybe you have a quality control team that hey, all 3 people in the quality control team need to sign off on something before it moves forward. So that ability for like a unanimous decision didn't exist before. So it's nice to put that in there. But obviously the biggest, best one is the editing records that are pending approval, because essentially, right, like a record that is pending approval is essentially not approved, right? So it's like the whole thing before, if you had to reject it and then resubmit it for approval, you should always be able to just sort of resubmit something for approval as long as it hasn't been approved yet,
Yeah. I think the one thing
So-
that would be nice, and this is something that I think is on Zoho's radar, is like once something is approved is actually where you're more likely to want to lock fields, right? So if you were to say like, hey, I quoted the customer a start date of, June 1st, right? And then your manager approves that and say, yes, we have the bandwidth to start this on June 1st. You might want to have a business rule. The salesperson can't go in there after approval and change a certain field to make sure that they get a certain deal closed. So that'd be a nice one to see down the line. But yeah, really great updates here. And then again, keep in mind that outside of these, a feature that's already existed for approvals is that you can have a lot of criteria about what type of records are going to enter different approval processes. So that example that Greg's talking about, where like, hey, you need all 3 people to sign off on something. You could say, hey, only enter a deal into that approval cycle if it contains certain pieces of data where it's like, hey, this type of deal needs everybody. Maybe something simpler can just be approved by anybody within that team. So really nice updates here, and they mix well with the existing flexibility offered with the approval processes. Next one, boy, oh boy, this is a good one. I'm really happy about this. I'll kind of let you drive. I won't steamroll this one, but this is an update to client scripts and how they interact and are triggered by subforms. Quick preamble before I hand to Greg. Client scripts, of course, are the scripts that are written in JavaScript. They run in the user's browser. The big advantage is they're super quick, right? So they make updates immediately. There's no need to save and refresh the page. They've always just had limitations around how we can use them with subforms. And it seems to me like this pretty much fixes that. Like we'll be able to do a lot of things with subforms that we just couldn't do before.
Yeah, exactly. So there's, if you notice at the top there, those subform events, those are some of the biggest ones, right? Because you could, but before these updates, you could update a subform via client script, but you had to like update the whole subform at once. It was like there was like the subform existed like as a field, and then you could pass like a whole entry into that, but you couldn't. The big thing was that you couldn't trigger anything client script wise based out of a subform. So we would put in like a little checkbox, that you just let's just like run client script, which little janky. But now, so when a particular cell in your subform, or you're adding a row, or if you're on the because now this also is combined with the recent update of being able to edit individual subform rows from the detail page without having to be in the edit record page. There's now a before row update trigger as well. So so huge. This is huge. We have had a few clients that we've already been utilizing these for. But buyer beware for a moment, because it's still kind of new. You may need to ping Zoho support to take a look at something, because we had somebody that the before row update option was present in like the drop down selections of like triggers, but we just couldn't get it to trigger.
Wouldn't do it.
It just wouldn't do it. So just be aware. This is still in its early days. So there will probably be some bumps for these first, I would guess probably a couple of weeks as they're kind of rolling it out officially. So just be prepared you might need to ping Zoho support to say like, hey, can you guys check the little switches on the back end to make sure all this has actually been turned on for my instance. But once you do that, then you should be off to the races.
Yeah, but this is a great update. I mean, just being able to run these immediately on a subform makes them so much more useful. One of the big ways that we use client scripts is sometimes you're doing math, quick calculations, stuff like that. That obviously is going to be great. You can calculate a subform row total minus discount immediately rather than after checking a box. The big one is that we'll also use these for like data validation rules. So let's say you're using a subform for creating like a quote, right? You got on your deal, you're putting together a proposal, and maybe you have certain rules around margin, that no product can be sold for less than 20% margin. The nice thing here is that we can catch that error as they're filling out one row rather than after they've filled out all rows and checked a box, right? So you kind of want to say like, hey, no, you can't really like lock in this row because you've discounted this too much. We're not going to make enough on it to be worth selling. Whereas, without this, they're going to fill out the whole thing. Then you're going to throw them for a loop when you require that change. So really nice just to be able to do these instantly and trigger off of subforms. This is going to be super useful. So big shout out to Zoho for that.
Yeah, another big one, and they give some examples down below, like filtering for a lookup field in that subform row.
Huge,
right?
Huge.
Like like obviously the biggest one of this would be on quotes, invoices, sales orders, right? That you could create a pick list. You could put in a pick list for like product category, and then have a client script filter the product lookup to only show ones that are in that particular category, which is really good. They also recommended the use of like kind of like record locking almost, that you could have a client script to validate like somebody can't delete a certain subform row based on criteria as well, right? So it's like they have the example here of, well, the deal has already gone into negotiation or review, so you can't take stuff off the order, whatever, right? Because the person has to either give it a thumbs up or thumbs down, or whatever you want. And then, of course, auto-filling values, we get that a lot where you maybe have like certain common packages of groups of products that like, oh, this is an X job which has always like these 5 or 6 line items to it, that you could pick that one line item, and then it would automatically add the 5 other line items that are included in that package, as it were, kind of like a composite item.
I mean, even like you could get to a place with this. I know we're going down a bit of a rabbit hole, but you can even get to a place to do a little bit of like suggested co-selling, because client script can do a pop-up where like you put in product A and it does a little pop-up that's like, hey, want to slip in product B, or maybe suggest that or bring it up. Like those little things are really nice, and you're just able to do that so much more easily.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, that does already exist in guided selling. Guided selling is already a tool in like the CPQ.
But you might be doing this on a deal. A lot of people will drop in just like a subform to a deal, and send out a proposal that way.
Yeah. So very exciting. Good stuff. And I don't know if you saw at the bottom of this post, they showing their client script roadmap of their upcoming things. So right now we're on step 3. So step 4 is going to be client script support in custom buttons. I'm excited to see what that means. If we're talking about like pop-ups or user input, something like that. That's my big hope, is that it's a custom button that will trigger a client script that could prompt like a user input. Like
before it runs the rest of the function. Oh yeah.
So I'm hoping that I really hope that that's what it is. Because you can kind of do that right now with commands. We've shown that a little bit.
Yeah,
but commands are like triggerable from anywhere in the CRM, not like a specific location like you would want for a button. And then we got client script support in portals down the line. Client script support in notes. It'd be interesting what it is that they want to. I guess you could. What would be nice for client scripting in notes would be like, say you had like kind of like templates that you wanted notes to follow. So like I go to create a new note and it automatically pre-populates with like name, date, or maybe not name and date, but like subject, deliverables, whatever your company might have. And then client script support in quick create pop-up and activity modules. That'd be good. And then finally, error logs all the way over at number 8. They'll tell you where things are going wrong
sooner than later, but we'll take them when we get them.
Take them when we get them.
All right. And with that, moving out of the world of CRM into Zoho Books, this is their monthly roll-up of everything that came out inside of January 2025. We've touched on some of these, so I'll just kind of summarize them quickly here. Couple updates for Germany around importing and exporting invoices. Same with compound and group taxes for Germany. I'm not a German accountant, so I can't speak too detailed to that, but I'm sure people are going to be happy. A couple that I really like, field comparisons in your workflow rules. So this basically means rather than saying if our discount is above 100, I could say if our discount is above our tax amount. So you're basically making a criteria comparing two fields. Knock, knock, Zoho CRM development team, put that in CRM. That's really nice and is not there yet for some reason. We've also got background execution for custom buttons. This is pretty niche, but if you're running a custom button and it takes a long time, you might have just a more complicated routine. It can now run in the background so that you don't have to like sit there and wait for something to finish up. Sending emails with custom SMTP servers. This is really nice. So some people report deliverability issues out of Zoho Books emails. I've never seen it for us. It's never been an issue for us, but I do know that it's an issue for some people. So this will essentially allow you to route your emails through your own mail server rather than sending them from Books. So if you are having any issues with that, you can use this to configure your own SMTP relay, essentially, which again, really important that these emails are deliverable. It's just never been an issue for me. I don't know why. We've never had a problem, but you can also now leave an organization. So if you were added to one via an error or something like that, you've got a little button, kind of a minor update. You can also now filter custom lookup fields. That's really slick. This is kind of from similar to what we did in CRM. So you can now set up criteria or refer to a custom view. Again, that's kind of a nice way to do it. CRM team, take notes. I think that's a pretty smart approach. We can also create workflow rules that refer to sub-entities within the invoice module. So what this means is that within the invoice module, you can essentially have a workflow that triggers on something related to it that doesn't exist as its own module. Again, not something that everybody needs, but kind of a nice one. I think the main thing here is like they did implement the ability to add late fees, and those are going to exist as a sub-module. That's the main one in my head that I would use here. Like, hey, you just got a late fee. If you pay now, we'll waive it. You know, a little workflow like that might just be useful. Handling duplicated items using SKU. Thank the Lord. Great job, Zoho. This has been needed for so long. The Books and CRM sync of products has always run based on name. I don't know why that was ever the case. It never should have been the case. Now it's based on SKU. Again, for most companies, this hasn't mattered because you generally are going to have different names for your products. A big part of where this gets a little bit wonky is if you need to like rebuild some products inside of inventory, they get caught in this syncing loop with Zoho CRM that causes a lot of pain and suffering. Couple minor updates for the inventory add-on, printing and downloading purchase receives, being able to pull some custom reports around customer and vendor balances. Just a couple minor things there on the inventory side, but a nice roundup of updates for Books. Really excited for, filtering lookups, being able to do your field-based criteria. Again, I love this in every app that I can get it. So happy to see it there inside of Zoho Books.
And my personal favorite is the leave organization. Just you, just the idea that you were trapped previously.
Yeah, let me out.
It was like the Hotel California. You can check in anytime you want. You can never leave.
You can never leave. You have to delete the whole thing to get out. Next one here. This is a nice one for the nerds in the room. So this is something they did for the CRM a while ago. Now they're rolling it out for more merge applications. So this is side to Zoho Writer, of course, Zoho's document creation tool. One of the main ways we use it is to automatically generate documents using merges, right? So we're going to put in data from a CRM record, from a creator record, from a desk ticket, from anywhere that you want. One of the things is with this is that when you were doing it natively in an app, they internally would use this API endpoint where you would feed it a template ID, an app, and a record ID. And then it would run all the merge based on the predefined stuff that you've set up in your merge template. If you did it with code, you had to map all those fields.
Which is the first example we have for our YouTube viewers. That's the first. The way they structured this post, it's a little bit weird. I just wanted to point it out before we ended up that they show the bad way first, or the old way. And then at the bottom of this post here, they show, hey, here's the new, better way.
A good way. This way here. And the big thing is, like, again, if you're someone who spends a lot of time in deluge code, doing it the other way probably didn't bother you that much, right? Because it's like, you're just mapping fields, and it gives you an opportunity to reformat fields, which is sometimes useful. But for a lot of people, they're like, hey, like, I've got everything dialed in this template. If I add a field to my template in the future, I don't want to have to go into my code and add another field to my mapping. Now you don't have to. You can essentially just invoke this merge based on IDs. So if you went in and changed your PDF mapping, you've automatically changed your code. You don't need to do anything. They rolled this out for CRM a little while back, and this update is essentially rolling it out for a ton of different applications. So now you're able to do this for Creator, Biggin, and Zoho Recruit. I would imagine that other applications using mail merge are probably going to get this too. I think those are really like the big four, if I had to think about where we are oftentimes running a merge activity. But yeah, really nice. Happy to see this. Again, it's been something I mentioned a lot over the last little while about Zoho apps, but I'm always happy when they do something that just makes it a little easier on the coding side for those users that just aren't as nerdy as we are, right? And it just makes life a lot easier for them if they can grab. I'll put it to you this way. It's a lot easier to copy paste this piece of code and jerry-rig it to work for you without a lot of coding knowledge than it is to use this stuff and get it to work for you without a lot of coding knowledge. So anytime they can just lower that bar, I think it's a good thing for the platform.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is what you mentioned, of like if you want to change anything in the template later, that's what this is so nice for, is that your piece of code can just keep doing its thing. And so for people like we especially like it because we get to write that one piece of code, and then we can tell our clients like, hey, by the way, now if you want to make any changes, make little adjustments, you don't need to pay us to make them. You can just you can make the little tweaks yourself to the template, especially with in the recent last 2 years or whatever, adding the repeating fields, the related lists. That's been a big thing of being able to like the automatic table creation or things like that based on related fields. That was way harder to do with the manual merge data process, because there were a bunch of extra API names that you had to nest in certain ways, things like that. So because you were mentioning before that this was already existing for CRM, so there's an API that we've been using before for CRM mail merge, and that's using the CRM APIs. So now this is using the writer API. So it's hitting the API of a different system, and so it's a little bit different, and why they can open it up now to the other services. So I notice here that you don't specify a service in this API call, so you do have to have everything pre-configured in your merge template before you can start executing this code, so that it knows which Zoho service am I trying to ping with this record ID.
So the template is basically going to be what tells the API what to do with that record ID, where to go get it.
Am I looking in Creator, or am I looking in CRM, or am I looking, wherever?
Got it. Well, really nice. This again, the ability to easily generate documents from within so many Zoho apps is something that I think is one of the bigger value propositions of bringing everything onto the platform. So any opportunity to make this easier to do is just going to make people happy. And that's what it's all about. All right, last one here. Quick update for Zoho marketing automation. So, and something that we had quickly talked about a long time ago that I guess is getting a more proper rollout. So one of the biggest challenges for email marketers, it's getting tougher out there every day for email marketers, is that you'll see a ton of clicks and opens that are from bots. And these are essentially automated software tools that are scanning incoming emails to look for viruses, malicious links, whatever it may be. And so, you'll send an email out and you'll be scoring on clicks, let's say, scoring on opens. and you'll see one contact randomly goes to like 500 points because the email was opened like 40 times and clicked 70 times, right? And it's like, okay, a human being didn't do that, right? It's so unlikely that they did that. And so what this is basically saying Zoho is going to be looking for those types of behaviors that look like bot-generated activity, and then they're going to filter them out of your metrics and reporting, right? Because you don't want to overestimate the effectiveness of a certain email campaign. It's like, hey, that subject line was great. We got like a 40% open rate. It's like, well, 15% of those were bots, right? So like, maybe we need to make an adjustment, or maybe 25% is fine, but at least you're able to make those informed decisions. The big, I think, downside of this before, when they rolled out like the V1 of this, was that it didn't do a good job at showing you the reporting around like, well, what clicks went away, how many were bots, and they've kind of expanded that. And then the big one here too, the titan in the world of anti-email marketing, Apple Mail. So they've now actually kind of solved for this. So they're going to give you some visibility into Apple's MPP, or Mail Privacy Protection, just so that you can actually see what opens are coming from those as well. So kind of a detailed read here to go through on how to turn it on, how to review those reports. But honestly, something that you're probably going to be well served in doing, because you don't want to be misled by certain response data that just isn't real, right? And it's just coming from bots.
Yeah, it's doing the best we can to stave off the dead internet, right? Of just of just your marketing automation, sending emails to a bot that is opening said emails, and just all of our AIs talking to each other. We're trying to prevent that. Trying to prevent that from taking over. So saying, all right, pretend
a couple more Twilight years before we're all phased out.
Yeah. But yeah, good. It's just good to be able to have those more realistic, like, it's just this is always going to be a constant arms race.
Yeah.
Right. Of exactly this kind of stuff, that as we get better at filtering out those things, so how to send better marketing emails, all the email clients will start coming up with more ways to throw you off. And it's always going to be a battle.
Yep. And really, the end of the day, like it is that arms race between the marketing tools and the email clients. It's one of those classic questions of like, when someone sends you an email, are you providing some type of implied consent that they're allowed to know that you opened it, right? Like that tech came out, everyone started using it, and now everybody knows if you opened or clicked the email, but like you didn't really opt in to giving them that data. Right. And so that's essentially what Apple does. They say everything's opened. You get nothing. You get no info from anyone on an Apple Mail. Like, you don't get to know if they opened it or not. We're actually going to intentionally try to ruin your data and show that they all opened it. So yeah, it'll be an arms race. I do find myself sympathetic to why things like Apple's MPP exist, because it is one of those things.
It's always,
if it's a big part of your strategy.
Emails. Yeah, it's always, marketing is the most annoying thing in the world, unless you're the one sending it, and then it's
and it's the best.
It's like, but my stuff is actually good though. Like, people do want to know about my stuff. I promise.
I think it all comes down to opt-in, right? Like, for us, we have our newsletter. We're only sending it to people that opt in. And even like every 3 or 6 months, Wayne goes through, and if someone hasn't opened it for a long time, he stops sending it to them, because it's like, hey, maybe you're not interested anymore. We're just going to opt you out for you. So yeah, it's always one of those things. People want to have the biggest list possible. It's like, what's the point? You want the list of people that actually want to get the email because it's useful. But I'll get off my soapbox. With that, I think we've wrapped up here on the news for today. So we're ready to jump right on into our code share of the week. All right, double header from Andrew this week, kind of the king of Club Z. We jokingly call it Club G because his last name is Gritton, and he is easily the biggest contributor over here. So he actually put up 2 code shares this week, one of them on a function to convert numbers into a comma separated currency format. This is really nice when you need to like merge one of these into a document or an email.
Yeah.
Zoho gives you the currency like as a decimal without, any symbols. The other one here is an integration for QuickBooks for searching records with special characters. I know in particular, this is a bit of a pain in the butt. But Greg, this is kind of your time to shine. You want to walk us through the code shares?
Yeah, absolutely. So starting off with the converting numbers to currency format, this one is really just a nice kind of plug and play. You can copy and paste this into almost any piece of code that you have, just replacing that currency variable with whatever your decimal variable is. And then if depending on your, now I guess where this code, if you needed to change what the formatting is, you just need to go in and replace some of those characters with, like say replacing that comma with a period down there. And if you wanted to adjust, I guess the number of, like, is there anything that doesn't just use the 3-3-3 model, right? Everybody just uses that. There's nothing that does like a weird, like 4 or 2.
I think there are regions that do 4. And I know there are regions that use commas instead of dots for decimals. So there is some variability, like on a global basis, to how this might look.
Yeah. So what we've got here is, the standard US style of $, and then every 1,000 place gets a comma, and then a decimal point for the cents. So good one there. Let's move over to the integration for searching with special characters. This one it is specified for QuickBooks at like the end, where I guess actually we don't even have the API in here necessarily. Oh no, we do. Yes, sorry. Later at the bottom is where he gets it specifically into the QuickBooks section, but the stuff up above is kind of taking a lot of APIs. If you're having to search in a database, a lot of times those search tools won't like special characters when you're searching for them, even if the special character exists in the record, and it's okay with special characters existing in the record, the search tool doesn't know what to do with them. Yeah. And so what this essentially does is says, all right, let me take my string that is my search term, and let me search for any special characters. And now I'm going to turn this single string into like a list of strings where I take every segment that is before or in between special characters and turn them into, so that then I can say that my criteria for searching, in this case QuickBooks, but you could do this in any system there, to say my thing should contain this and this and this and this. So like smart. He has an example up there of the display name of Zenatta _test #2, right? That now we say if it contains Zenatta and test and 2, then that should get us back what we were actually searching for, just minus the special characters. Because you can't say, well, it should contain, because you can't say like it should have most of this. You have to separate it into those different segments.
These little percents, these basically say like the directionality of the contains. So you can almost read this as it starts with Zenatta, it has test in the middle, and it ends with 2. But that's a really smart approach, because your 2 approaches are basically like try to re-encode all of the special characters into a format that'll allow you to search on. Or you could say, you know what? Toss the special characters. Let's search structurally on everything else. And our odds of being wrong on that are infinitesimally small, right?
Yeah, because and then you can always... Yeah, and then the worst case scenario is that you'll get back more than one result in your search results, and then you just need to. So now I, instead of having to sort through 10,000 records, it returned, well, there's 3 records that might match with that. So now I'll just do a for each loop, and now I can actually check the actual full value with the special characters against what's in the actual record, and look for that exact match. So yeah, great work by Andrew on this one. Yeah, so the bottom part there is the part that's focusing on the QuickBooks. So if you're a QuickBooks person trying to do this, then this is the part that's going to be most pertinent to you. But the rest is applicable in other situations as well.
Yeah. Cool thing is, just as a closing comment, like, this is pretty dynamic. Like, I mean, you can almost just copy paste this, because it's really just like doing the slices based on what you feed it dynamically on the number of sections that it needs to apply the search to. So really good piece of code. We always like when we can run something where, like, if you need to do this, just go to Club Z, lift it, go ahead and take it, and it should pretty much work for you. Like, swap in your realm ID and your display name as a parameter, and then it should just run. So yeah, big shout out to Andrew on that, the king of Club Zenatta. If you don't know, shameless self-plug, just head over to club.zenatta.com, sign up with your email address. You get access for free to all the code, ask us questions, see the Zoho news that we cover on the show in full detail. It is the place to be if you're a fellow Zoho nerd. So with that, I think we're ready to jump on over to what's new on Zenatta.com. All right. So what has Wayne cooked up for us this week? He has written a blog on kind of the benefits of Zoho for nonprofits in particular. One of the biggest things with Zoho is that it's inexpensive, right? And if you're a nonprofit, minimizing costs is an important part of your job, right? You really want to make sure that as much of the money that you're getting can go to the causes that you're trying to support. So minimizing cost on tech stack is definitely a part of that. So essentially what Zoho does, or what Wayne ran through here, is like why it might be a good idea. He gives you a link to go get in touch with Zoho. For some types of nonprofits, you'll actually qualify for some discounts, and then gives you a run through of how some of those applications may apply for you. Everything from capturing donations, doing your outreach, managing your events, pulling reports. So yeah, a really good write-up here on how nonprofits can benefit in the world of Zoho One.
And I can be a testimony that I run. I help. Well, I don't run it all by myself, but I help run a nonprofit here in Southern Utah for improv, comedy shows, and education. That we use Zoho One for our ticketing, all of our bookkeeping, things like that, and it's great.
Awesome. Well, you heard it here first, a true testimony here on the CRM Zen Show. All right. I think with that, we're ready to jump over to YouTube and check out our tips of the week. I'm going to say that as a plural nowadays. Tips of the week. All righty. So we've got 2. First one here, I put together a quick walkthrough of the integration between Zoho Desk and Zoho Projects. This essentially allows you to push and pull information about tasks and issues from your tickets. So essentially saying, hey, this ticket is going to be associated to a task, or more likely is going to be associated to an issue. Show you how to set it up, how to pass data back and forth, some of the data that's going to flow natively between the two. This is one of those integration tools where we have found cases where we add like a little snippet of deluge here or there just to expand the functionality a bit. But it covers a lot of that baseline, right? Of like converting it to an issue, and then I'll run a little function to like reorganize the data or set a due date or whatever it may be. But yeah, quick one there over on the channel, just if you are using both these tools, or if you're considering it and just want to take a look at like, what is that going to look like if I turn it on? This is a great video to check out. And then in addition, 2-for-1 deal this week. It's always for free, but now you get 2. This is a video from Greg on Zoho CRM blueprints, kind of a beginner's guide to building these out. We have some videos on blueprints, but they're really old. So we thought, hey, you know what? Let's make some updates to these, kind of improve them a bit, make sure they cover all the new features and functionalities. So yeah, Greg kind of runs us through these in detail. And then he also does something a lot of viewers oftentimes request, which is once he does the build, he shows you how it works, right? We pull up the record and actually press some of those buttons, and you can see exactly what moving through a blueprint transition is going to look like.
Yep. And so I go through the most common use case, which is controlling stage on a deal. And because that's like, because any, I'll give you a little free preview. The purpose of a blueprint is that it runs on a pick list of some kind, and all the options of that pick list become sort of, think of those as like train stops on a track, and then you create these transitions, which are those segments of track that take you from one train station to the next train station with certain requirements, either before, during, after. And so the most common pick list that people drive stuff on is that deal stage. But you can translate it to whatever kind of process you're controlling via a pick list.
Got it. And yeah, I agree. Deals are the most common. Sometimes people do lead status or a custom module or separate pick list, but that is a great place to start. Well worth checking out there over on YouTube. And as you all know, we say it every week, over on youtube.com/Zenatta. That's where we've got all the videos, the webinars, the podcast, the tips of the week, really everything that we've got going on is over here, and it is all for free, just waiting for you. Oh, thanks for the reminder, Freddie. Yeah, we did get another angel got their wings. We did crest the 22,000 subscriber mark over there. Thank you, everybody, for your ongoing support here. We really appreciate your, following the channel, keeping engaged with our content, and letting us know what we can do best for you.
Now, remind me, is it that a new angel gets a set of wings, or is it one angel that keeps getting an extra set of wings every time?
Eldritch horror, like accurate visualizations of angelic description. I kind of like option 2. Yeah, let's go with that. Next time, Freddie, we need one of those horrible images of, I'll give you one later. I want to get too graphic on the show. Alrighty. Well, as always, thank you so much for the support here. And I think before we wrap up, we do have a little question that we're going to cover here in our Azaz segment. All right, here we are. So question from Rich. I'm getting ready to look into adding an integration between HubSpot and Zoho, looking for a sync of HubSpot to Zoho for leads and then Zoho to HubSpot for contacts and accounts. So any of these suggestions on options built by HubSpot versus Zoho using Flow, etc.? So here's the way that I normally will go about this, Rich. So for the HubSpot to Zoho flow of like a lead coming in, I will normally use a tool like Zoho Flow because you're going to do that on more of a triggered basis, right? Like a lead is going to hit a certain status, and then we're going to want to process them maybe as like a deal in Zoho. You're going to take advantage of the quoting, the proposal generation, whatever on the Zoho side. So normally, I'll use something like Flow for that integration. Now, from Zoho to HubSpot for contacts and accounts, my assumption is you want to push them back to use like some of the marketing tools in HubSpot to manage those long-term engagements. I'll tell you, there are a few tools on the Zoho marketplace that do this integration. They're okay. If you see the reviews they get, they're middling. So you might have a couple bugs or issues there if you do go forward with one of those. You can also use tools like Skyvia, that are essentially like table-based integration tools. Main piece of advice on how you approach the Zoho to HubSpot one, don't try to do that on a trigger basis using Flow. Trigger base is going to work fine for step 1 because it's that like clear cutover. But if you're using HubSpot for marketing, you need like a regular sync of all updates going on in Zoho so that they stay in the appropriate segment. You have all the appropriate data on the HubSpot side. So you're going to want something that's like a table-based sync. So whether that's, giving one of the marketplace apps a try, potentially using something like Skyvia, you're going to pay a little bit for that. Fortunately, it's not cheap. Or just throwing it out there, a lot of the marketing tools in Zoho are getting better and better. Probably going to be a day you don't need to do this. So I would advise, like, don't build anything too custom for that part 2 where you're going to HubSpot. Use something off the shelf, potentially a marketplace app, potentially a Skyvia, and just I would try not to go down the rabbit hole there, because I bet you within a year or two, you're probably going to move a lot of that to Zoho anyways. So something to consider.
So Tyler, is your concern with the custom push, because you could, if you wanted to just set a workflow rule that on any kind of edit to a contact or an account, just push all of that. Are you concerned about API limits? Is that what you're thinking of, or is it just so? Is it a volume thing, or is it
you run a workflow on every single trigger of everything to push everything that it just gets funky? Like it'd be fine, right? Like you're right, it would be fine when a contact's created. You create a contact in HubSpot, you store the IDs on both sides, then you're just regularly pushing that data. It's more just like, let's say in 3 months you want to add 5 fields. Okay, well, if you're not a deluge guy, you got to pay someone to come back in and do that. Like it just feels like one of those things you're going to have to manage and monitor really regularly to make sure it's not doing anything weird, where something off the shelf might just save a little bit of that pain and suffering.
Yeah, good point.
All right. And I think that is going to wrap up the show for this week. Thanks so much for joining there, Greg. And thank you, everybody, for watching. If you want to get in touch with us over here at Zenatta, just head on over to zenatta.com, click on book a meeting. We'll be chatting in no time. On the website is also where you'll find complete episodes of the show, as well as links to all the stories we discussed today.
And head over to club.zenatta.com to join our online community, where you can access the code shares we talked about today, as well as chat with other Zoho team users. And if you want to get your team trained up in less than a week on the core Zoho apps, CRM, projects, desk, marketing, head over to zenatta.com/training and start your course today.
And as always, we always appreciate when you like and subscribe here on YouTube, as well as your choice of podcast app. We'll see you next Friday.
The CRM Zen Show was produced by Podcaster Zen.
And let me just open up the Find My Friends. I slipped the air tag into Brett's shoe. I think he's in Barbados. Wow, look at that. Oh, nope. Now he's in the Bermuda Triangle. Oh, well, looks like he's gone forever. That's too bad.